What's up? Welcome back. I'm John Stark, MacMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and it's March Madness, and I'm on a quest to review 31 good, great, or excellent movies, and I allowed somebody to convince me that Velvet Buzzsaw was one of them. So I cold watched Velvet Buzzsaw. I think somebody was screwing with me, but also at the same time, not. I mean, like, I could see why people like Velvet Buzzsaw. It might have been a legitimate ask, but someone was like, "Oh, you should see Velvet Buzzsaw. Make sure that's on your list." So I was like, I never watched Velvet Buzzsaw. That's actually on my list of Netflix movies that I should watch. So at some point, it's directed by Dan Gilroy, and it has audio description. So click like and subscribe so we can talk about Velvet Buzzsaw for the first time as one of the 31 greatest movies that Netflix has ever made. It stars Jake Gyllenhaal and Rene Russo, both of which Dan worked with on Nightcrawler, and also Toni Collette and John Malkovich, who Dan did not work with on Nightcrawler. um, I don't how to even describe Velvet Buzzsaw. First of all, that name. It's a catchy name. There's only ever going to be one Velvet Buzzsaw. Uh, but it feels like Dan Gilroy is sending up the entire art industry. Like all of the silly people who stare at things and decide what they're worth, and the people who buy art they don't really understand, but they're told that it's worth something and that the artist matters. It's like tastemakers, you know what I'm saying? Like, who decides, who makes these rules? And it sort of feels like, in many ways, it's a satire of that, but it also is sort of like a satirical horror movie. So it also, things go off the rails in some scenes where the movie just gets dark and spooky and horror for some reason, but other times it feels like it's light and weird. Everything sort of feels odd throughout certain portions of the movie. Um, and I mean, I don't think anybody did a bad job acting. I thought the performances were all interesting, but the movie is just bizarre. There's an artist who dies and their work is found, and even though the artist wanted the work destroyed, they ended up they ended up selling it anyway. And I guess the work is haunted, or either that or else maybe it just inspires insanity. I mean, you could make an argument about anything. It's all about whatever Dan was trying to say as a filmmaker through this. And clearly he has a very low opinion of art dealers and the art world, the people who pay, you know, I don't know, millions of dollars for just sometimes just total bullshit. Uh, you hear about somebody who bought something. There was a Cheeto that resembled something, and it sold for like six figures, and it was a Cheeto that looked like Jesus, I think. And you're just like, who is buying this stuff? Who has that much disposable income? Can you just go fund me instead of buying this silly thing? I love thinking about the time that Banksy sold a painting and then it shredded itself, and it's like, that's what you bought. You bought that experience. But the funny thing is, like, so many people know about that art piece that he made, that in many ways you could be like, that was me. I own that. No, that's me. I own the shreds of this art, the shredded artwork. Um, yeah, so if you're a fan of visual art, don't know that this movie's for you unless you also think the world in which you're in is silly. But if you take it really seriously, I don't know that this movie's for you. I don't really know that Velvet Buzzsaw is for everybody either. I don't know that it was 100% for me it tonally is fighting itself. It can't decide if it wants to be a satirical comedy or a horror movie. And it doesn't feel like satirical horror is a thing. It doesn't feel like it knows what that is as a genre. So it feels like it is two things that are fighting itself. Like it's either satire or it's a horror movie. But it can't be both at the same time. So when it shifts tone, it dramatically shifts tone and it changes into these scenes that end up feeling out of place to what the rest of the movie is. It's a very odd experience, but I like films that take risks also. So, points to taking a risk. Usually, the films that I end up giving like an F to are very sort of cookie cutter, boring, anybody could have made this bullshit that ends up coming out of nowhere. Last year, I failed three movies: Tarot, Stream of Consciousness, and The Painter. All three of those could have been made by anybody and at any time, and are all films that we've seen versions of. We've seen those memory thrillers before. There were plenty of them last year. Some of them were really bad, like Stream of Consciousness. We've seen so many shitty teen horror movies like Tarot. Tarot just took it to a new low. And we've seen a lot of shitty action movies like The Painter. So, like, it's not like those films are uniquely um, uh, somehow bringing a new flavor to the table along with them. No, the movies that did, like Joker and Megalopolis and Here, that weren't good, were more interesting to me the first time through because they were taking risks. Velvet Buzzsaw to me feels like those movies, and I might have enjoyed it a little bit better. It feels like an experience that I'm glad that I had, that I'm glad that I sat through, but I never want to have again. So, thanks for the recommendation, but I don't know that Velvet Buzzsaw is a good, great, or excellent movie, but somebody thought it was. So I decided to sit down and see, is Velvet Buzzsaw worth the time of day? And I think 1 out of 10 people, the answer will be yes. I think for two more of those people, the answer will be, well, I'm glad I saw that one time, and they'll be fine with that. But for like the rest of the people, I don't know. I don't think I don't think Velvet Buzzsaw is going to be on their list. I think at least half the people who watch Velvet Buzzsaw will have a visceral reaction to it in a negative way. So, I'm going to give Velvet Buzzsaw C. That's where I'm feeling with this. So, audio description was good. It balances an art world with weird horror that happens throughout the film. So cool. The opening credits were fun. That was a fun opening credits sequence. Um, it's an interesting movie. It certainly is that. I'm not going to take that away from it. I was not bored. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.